Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Storm clouds gathered beyond the studio windows, though inside, the morning light of the set of This Morning shone bright and false. Bright with the polished smiles of cameras rolling. False because today the secret that weighed on one man's heart could no longer stay hidden. Ben Shephard, known to millions as the voice that greets the day, sat quietly backstage while monitors flickered with the live feed. The familiar hum, the distant laughter of segment rehearsals, everything felt normal. But in his chest, the world had tilted. 6 weeks earlier, at home after the last show, Ben had felt the first tremor, a sharp pain, whispered suggestions in his body that something was wrong. He pushed it aside. There were scripts to read, jokes to toss off, the comfort of routine. He told himself he was being silly, that this was just stress, a muscle pulled during a weekend football game. But then the tests came. The long corridor at the hospital with its antiseptic smell, the waiting room chairs, the hushed conversations, the doctor's face that seemed to hold the room in stillness, and the words, a growth that demands attention. The word that hovered afterwards, unsaid but loud, cancer. Now, on the studio floor, Ben's mind replayed that moment in slow motion. He had agreed to go public, if only to stop hiding the trembling in his hands, the forced cheerfulness behind a camera. He would tell his audience he was fighting. He would ask for time. He would admit fragility. Because real courage, he had realized, wasn't always about bursting into a room with a grin. It was about letting people see you tremble and still stand. At airtime, the lights came on. The opening music faded. Kat Deely's face appeared on screen, full of warmth and routine. And then Ben's. He took a breath so deep his chest felt tight. He looked into the camera, looked at thousands of living rooms across the country, and said, "Good morning. Today I have something personal to share with you." And the world wearily paused. Tears stung his eyes not for himself, but for his family. His sons who had sat in the kitchen when the doctor's words came, their young faces as frightened as his own. He spoke of the diagnosis and of the upcoming fight. He spoke of how stunned he was, how thankful for the early detection, how determined he felt. He asked for kindness, for patience, for space, but also promised that if he could, he would be back stronger, smiling again, holding up the card that said, "Next contestant, please." On social media, the reaction was immediate. Fans flooded his post with messages, "We're behind you, Ben. Stay strong. One day at a time." And many admitted they had wept reading his words. Some shared their own stories of fear and survival. Others simply wrote, "Thank you for telling us the truth." Even the most rigid morning TV watcher found their hearts parting for him. The polished presenter turned vulnerable man. Back in the green room after the announcement, Ben sank into a sofa. The adrenaline ebbed. His co-hosts gathered round him, arms around his shoulders, steadying him in silence. When the cameras cut, he wiped his eyes. "I'm okay," he said softly, a bit shaky, but okay. And in that moment, he realized something. This wasn't a confession of defeat. It was a declaration of connection. He would fight, yes, but he would fight with the people who had watched him all these years, who trusted him to greet their mornings with brightness. He would fight for them, for his family, for himself. Later that night, his wife and sons sat with him at the kitchen table. The kettle whistled, their hands found his. He didn't speak much. He didn't need to. The tears came quietly, shared, the kind that come when love is stronger than fear. And they sat there, together. In the days ahead, there would be chemo schedules, hospital visits, days when he could not mask the pain. There would be worry, yes, and maybe some tears on live TV again, but this time for different reasons. For truth, for hope, for survival. This morning, the cameras rolled. Someone else did their bit. The show carried on. But for Ben Shephard, the world changed just a little, in exactly the way that matters. He leaned into the vulnerability, and in doing so invited all of us to lean into our own. And the fans couldn't help but hold back tears, because the man they greeted each morning was no longer simply the cheerful host, but a fighter. And we, in our living rooms, stood with him.